Today we're looking at one of the best ways to make millions of gold in Dragonflight. This is going to require absolutely no professions, no knowledge points or anything. You just need a bit of gold to get started on this. If you manage to become a pro at this gold making method, then you'll likely not have any issues with gold for the rest of expansion. This is because although this is not a new gold making method, it has definitely become something that has become more efficient in Dragonflight, most likely because of the new profession system and the increased demand for materials. Disclaimer first then, sometimes you're going to lose gold doing this, that is just a fact. Me and many other experienced gold makers have lost loads of gold doing this at times. This is not a risk-free gold making method, so don't invest anything that you can't afford to lose. All that being said, if you do this right, then you should definitely be making more gold than you lose, and a lot of people have been finding that this is the case in Dragonflight. Flipping has always been the best way to make gold in WoW, so that's basically buying something to resell it at a higher price. Trade goods for crafting in particular in Dragonflight have been on almost a perfect weekly schedule where the price would spike by up to 20 to 50% on reset day and then decrease back to a baseline before spiking again next reset. This is because on reset day there is suddenly huge demand for these as players want new gear crafted or get new items and need new enchants, etc. So there's lots of sales and the price goes up. The blue line here is the price on these trade goods. On the graph here you can clearly see when the reset days are just by when the prices spike up. Over the following days the demand and supply stabilises to a more normal level, so the price drops off until the next weekly reset. All we need to be doing then is buying up these materials when they are at their cheapest, which is usually a couple of days before the weekly reset, but this can vary. Then once reset rolls around and the price begins to rise, you sell it all off and you can make a decent profit. To do this, the first thing you need to do is check if a certain material even seems to be affected by the weekly cycle. For example, when I looked at Awake and Decay, something that you would expect to be affected by the weekly reset, there barely seemed to be any variation in the price when reset day rolled around. Use the graphs on Oribus Exchange, which is linked in the description below, to see if the particular things you are looking at seem to have those price fluctuations. Like with the ones you have seen me show here, you are looking for spikes in price around reset day. You could potentially buy crafted goods as well, but personally I think this is too risky. You are much better off with fast selling trade goods. Oribus Exchange is great for showing you the history of materials price and where it is currently in relation to that, but it is a little bit behind the live auction house. Personally, I like to have any materials that I'm closely watching on my favourites list on the default auction house UI. This basically makes it so that I'm seeing that particular material at its current price every time that I open up the auction house. This will give you a really good idea of how the market feels for a particular trade good as you're continuously exposed to what's going on with it. In addition to that, you'll pick up dips in prices well before they show up on external websites. Over time, material prices do tend to drop, but over the course of less than a week or so that we should be using this technique, you shouldn't be seeing too much of a change. That is of course unless Blizzard comes in and nerfs or buffs something, and then you can see a sudden dramatic change. We saw this with the drop rate buff on glowing Titan orbs, and many players losing millions overnight. This was a pretty scummy move on Blizzard's part to do this without warning, knowing full well that some of you had your entire fortunes tied up in the orbs, or the crafted weapon enchants that they made. A lot of people lost everything they'd made so far in Dragonflight, which really sucked, and there was no reason that they couldn't put a warning out before this was going to happen. That is the exception though. The drop in price for materials tends to be a gradual process over weeks on weeks. Basically then, use Oribus Exchange to check if markets are affected by the weekly reset price spike cycle, and then what the recent history is. Then use the in-game favourites so you can keep a close eye on the market and watch out for any investment opportunities. Overall, this is definitely one of, if not the best ways to make gold in Dragonflight. It's also one of the best ways to lose gold in Dragonflight 2. All this amazing looking mailbox emptying is in fact a complete farce in this case. This attempt at a flip did not work out and I ended up losing about 1 million gold here. That being said, I've had a lot of success picking up materials on the cheap, just buying up at the right time of the week. The best use of the weekly cycle is definitely for picking up crafting materials on the cheap that you intend on using yourself, but flipping them like we've talked about in this video, can work awesomely too, and doesn't need any professions at all. Thanks for watching guys, and see you next time.